It's often said, Renee, that the role of Violetta requires 3 different sopranos. Vocal fireworks in one act, dramatic singing in the second, in the last act, lyrical, soft singing. How do you see that?
It's very true, actually. You know, the first act is this coloratura of role, and of course the first aria is so incredibly difficult. And the second act is definitely the most dramatic, and it's really the meat and potatoes of this opera, of this role. And the third act is so beautifully lyric and fragile and vulnerable. So completely 3 different types of vocal writing.
You've talked about how you waited a long time to sing this role. Is it because this role requires a vocal maturity and a mastery of the whole gamut of...
Definitely. Absolutely. I couldn't have sung this younger. In fact, it's counterintuitive, really, because most people think they can sing this role when they're young and their voice can do everything, and then as the voice ages, you can do less. But in my case, it was the opposite, because I could only sing it as my technique developed. You know, as a young person, I was singing heavier and darker and couldn't sing really very well above the staff. So it wasn't until I sang Manon in first time in Paris in '97 that I began to even imagine that I could sing Violetta. And it's still, I mean, it's still an amazing challenge for me. And I, every time I sing the role, I think, okay, you know, I have to remind myself that I've done it before. Because it's a stretch, particularly that first act aria. And the more I am in the drama, you know, because those da 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 ha, I think that's laughter. I think she's really, and she's fighting the truth, which is that she's already in deep. You know, that's the way love is sometimes. It just hits you when you least expect it and when you least want it sometimes. So she's fighting it in a way, and that's where the hysteria comes from.
I love the passage where it feels like you're flying.
Yes.
De volar, volar, to fly.
Yeah, flying and dancing. She's dancing in this piece, yeah. And unfortunately, I mean, it's so hard to sing. There's so much more I would want to do, but I'm hoping to just suggest enough of it so the audience feels all of these things.
But you know, she is ill and she's sick. That to see a little bit of the fight in the singer going through that aria. Right. I mean, and some singers fight more than others, unfortunately.
Yes.
But is a part and parcel of the theater of it, isn't it?
True, absolutely, yeah. That I'm going to remember that. It's when I'm having a hard time, I'm going to make it look like I'm acting. Right. I'm sick.
Mai arresta!
Usciamo! Oddio!
Ancora! Voi soffrite! Non c'è che questo!
No, che provo! Oh, là, passate! Non può conch'io sarò!
Come bramate!
I haven't sung this role very much, really. It's only been in the last 5 years, and I discovered about 2 times ago, this is a role where if you keep going back to the score, you find more and more things. I mean, you're doing that with us now, obviously, but there are so many pauses. He writes these breaths all the time, and I think for her, it's her illness. She's constantly having trouble with catching her breath, and that's a perfect place for that, because she's so excited about having met this man, and she's feeling these things, but it also plays into her illness in a way. So I'm trying always to explore this in the piece, and it's so difficult because you think about it in one moment, and then the next moment you're distracted with something else, and suddenly it's not there. It's where is this illness in the piece, and finding those places.
The challenges of this role, can you talk about the sort of different vocal challenges there are through the part?
I would say the overarching challenge is definitely stamina. I mean, she's on stage almost the entire time and singing almost the entire time. So there's only a beginning of Act 2, Scene 2 that she's, and it's not as if, I'm in the dressing room, with my feet up. It's constant costume changes. It's quite strenuous. So Act 2 is particularly it's exhausting emotionally as well. It's not just the drama of the singing, although if you really want to invest the right amount of emotion in this part, it is physically taxing, because it goes from high to low in terms of range and dynamic range. It's also absolutely every extreme. And then you've got this incredible fragility at the end, and to find that weakness, to find that frail last thread of life, and that she saved, in the hope that he would come back. So, and to play her, and particularly in this production, Sir Richard Eyre has come back and is really working with us and with us to find every ounce of drama in every phrase. So physically, I would say this is probably the most demanding production I've ever done of this. And I'm loving it because it's stretching. It's an enormous stretch and a challenge. And I have to really guard in between performances when I'm singing this role. I have to be careful. After performances, this is one of the roles that I can't just live life as usual. I have to really think about my voice.
The first act duet between Violetta and Alfredo, the contrast of the vocal writing is, I find, just amazing. This lovely, innocent boy singing these beautiful romantic phrases, haltingly, and you respond with this coquettish.
Right, totally. That's a great word. That's a perfect word for it.
But he writes dididum, badabum, badabum, bidibim, badabum,
Yeah.
badabum, which require a certain timing, a certain je ne sais quoi, and a certain
Right.
just off-the-cuff treatment. Is that an element of the character that is difficult to play, the coquettishness at the beginning?
See, that's why I hate to lump Act One in as being all difficult, because I love that duet and I love singing it. It's so delicious. It's absolutely delicious because she's flirting with him completely, and she's also taken with him in a way because he's being aggressive in a really beautiful.
But at the same time dismissing him, trying to dismiss him.
Yes, I mean she's saying, she's basically saying go away and you come here at the same time.
Yeah,
She's saying you have to find someone else in the sweetest, sexiest way. So she obviously she doesn't know what she wants. Obviously at this point, he's getting to her because he's so honest. And he disarms her completely. There's nothing suave about him in the way that probably all of the society men are. And it is delightful, that writing. And it's different. There's nothing else like it in the rest of the piece.
The voices weave one into another, and yet you're saying completely different things.
Right. And then it ends with that fantastic cadenza, which I love the way we're doing it. It's so good.
Now, a cadenza, we tend to think of cadenzas as just being for the solo voice, a moment where the orchestra stops playing and there's some kind of vocal display. But here it's the two of you. And
Right. Two of us together. And in the realization, in this opera, as with almost every opera, their moment for happiness and for being in love lasts for about 5 minutes. And it's very short here. It's just the end of Act One. And they're not even together in Act Two that you see them happy. So we have to really make the audience understand, and Verdi does such a beautiful job with it, that something really special has happened between them.
Amore misterioso altero, croce delizia, delizia e
In Act 2, where you have this torturous duet with Alfredo's father, Germont, you are almost brought to your knees and having to basically give up your relationship with Alfredo. And you have this this moment of acceptance of what you must do. And you have this incredible moment, Dite alla giovine. And it couldn't be more simply written, but can you tell us a little bit about that moment for you?
Well, this moment is the reason why I wanted to sing this role. Every time I saw the opera, I never was absolutely in love with the piece. I was too aware of the difficulties of it, and probably hadn't seen that many great performances. But every time it came to this moment, this Dite alla giovine, it didn't matter what was going on. I just said, I have to do this piece.
And what is she saying in this little bit?
You have to tell your daughter that somebody gave up so much for her. It's somebody who really had only one chance for love, one chance for life, really, and somebody who's going to die. She's talking about herself, and it's the most heartbreaking moment. And the way he does it, too, because they're singing and arguing and singing and arguing, and suddenly time stops. And just out of nowhere comes this ah in the middle voice that's completely exposed. And in that ah is, a lifetime of pain, and every hope dashed. And it's just one of the most heartbreaking moments in all of opera, I think.
You have such an amazing capacity to sing legato. In other words, the joining of one note to another in a smooth way, and to create, therefore, pathos and attention in a public that is listening to you. What's technically behind legato singing? Can you explain that for us a little bit?
Oh, gosh, that goes back to the very first lessons that you have when you talk about consonants being clothespins on the clothesline that you're hanging.
No, let's explain that. Because, so in other words, if the clothesline is the vowels.
The clothesline is the sound, right, and the clothespins that are the consonants.
Yes.
So the idea is that the line continues despite, what it is that you're trying to say. On the other hand, we want to pronounce clearly. So the coordination of all of these things takes decades to really master, and I'm still working on it. It's still a work in progress, but because you want the expression of the text, but you still want to shape the phrase. And for me, phrases have a very strong visual element. In fact, everything for me is visual. So I can see, it's almost like a mountain range, and in advance of a phrase, I'll know what the shape wants to be. And then the other thing I think that people don't teach and don't talk about enough, and I learned from one pianist actually a long time ago, is the concept of tension. in the phrase, and it's a pulling. It's not even easy to describe, frankly, but it's a pulling through a phrase that gives a sense of tension, and that's what drags our hearts into the whole idea of expression. Because a perfectly sung line has a different experience altogether. That's a more of a pristine clarity, you know. But if you put tension into a line, then suddenly it's in your gut. It's for the audience. I'm saying they're going to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these things play into the legato, and then the idea is to have your throat be not involved. Is to really have it be between the breath and resonance, and to try and take this out of it.
Can you really explain that? What does that mean? How does the breath work, and how does the resonance and your throat? What's the mechanism?
It's about efficiency. It's about singing in the most efficient way possible, so that you're not tired. And the breath and the support are the most crucial elements of all, because without them, you're going to be exhausted in 5 minutes. And then the resonance is what creates a sound which will carry, again, without you using too much muscle and too much effort, which, again, you can do when you're 22, and then, you know, after years, the muscles just give out. You know, they get thicker, and they get tired, and they just say, you know, and then you get a wobble, and so that's the resonance part. And Schwarzkopf said, you know, one of the crucial things, she said, you know, and somebody, Michel Seneschal, said this to me. I learned so much from my colleagues, you know, that you have to sing with head voice. You have to have head voice in your sound.
What does that mean?
That head voice is the hooty, high partials, the high resonance in the voice. So, whoo, as opposed to the chesty, darker sound.
Yeah.
And if you always have that, some threads of head voice in your sound, then you're a bit safer. If there's a spin, if the vibrato's fast, the minute you feel too much weight in the voice, then you're in danger, really, of doing something that was going to shorten your life.
The title La Traviata, the lost one, it famously was a fiasco at its premiere. That probably had a lot more to do with the performance than with the actual work. But now it has become just one of the great titles that draws people in.
Right.
Has that been your experience as a performer of this piece?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, it's the most grateful role I sing. People love her. Audiences love her. And it's partly because she starts the opera in a position, you know, that's first of all, people in the 21st century don't know what a courtesan is, a 19th century courtesan is. So courtesan in the 19th century was incredibly cultivated. I mean, Marie Duplessis was 23 when she died and spoke 7 languages and did all of this in about 5 years. And it was it Chopin who taught her piano? I mean, it was just an unbelievable rise to fame. She would have been the president, you know. So incredible life, short flame of a life. But what I think people love most about this opera, besides the way it's composed, the beautiful tunes, and the power of the music. I mean, that's number one. But number two is that she ultimately has more integrity than every other character in the piece. She is the one who does the right thing. She is the one who does what she says she's going to do and sticks to her guns. And she is supposed to be the one who has the lowest morals and not good values. And in fact, she rises above everyone else. So people love her. And in other words, it's one of the roles that for all of the effort, there's a tremendous payback at the end, that you get the love of the audience.